Hello everyone, this is Neha Tulsyan from Crescent Creation. Welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm featuring the stamp sets from Not2Shabby Shop May Box of the Month. And this is a bonus card that I made for my channel after uploading 2-card video on Not2Shabby Shop channel. So if you haven't watched that video of mine, go ahead and first watch that and then come back and watch this one. The link to the video is in the description box below. So today I'm creating my own pattern paper using stamp sets, and I've already shown 2 ways of doing that in the Not2Shabby Shop channel, and here I'm just showing you the 3rd way that you can create your own pattern paper using stamp sets. I'm using Drink the Coffee stamp set from Not2Shabby Shop. The May box of the month got sold out pretty fast, but the stamp sets are still available on Not2Shabby Shop, and all the stamp sets are linked in the description box below. So here I'm just lining the sentiment stamps and creating a pattern to go on my background. I'm using 5 of the 6 sentiment stamps from the Drink the Coffee stamp set, and I'm lining them up on my A2 size watercolor cardstock. It's the Holtz watercolor cardstock, as I'm gonna go ahead and heat set these sentiments and then use some watercolor to color the background. So once I'm happy with how my images look, I'll go ahead and close the MISTI door and pick all the stamps, prep the cardstock using my anti-static powder tool, and stamp the images using clear ink. Since it's a watercolor cardstock, I'll have to stamp it a couple of times to get a crisp image. Since it's a clear ink, you won't be able to see much here, but in real life, I can tell if the images are getting stamped properly or not. Once I'm happy with the images, I'll go ahead and add some clear embossing powder to it, tap off the excess and go ahead and heat set it using my heat gun. Here you can see those shiny sentiments. It's been heat set. Now I'll go ahead and stamp the bottom part of my cardstock. For that, I'm going to go ahead and remove 2 stamps and just use the rest 3 stamps and stamp the images again, repeating the same steps, first preparing the cardstock using anti-static powder tool and then stamping the images couple of times using clear ink, making sure I get a crisp image, and then I'll pour some clear embossing powder on top of the stamped images and then heat set it using my heat tool. And now I'll go ahead and color my background. I'm using a Distress Ink Reinker in Blueprint Sketch color, and here I'm just adding water to my complete background using my water brush. Once I have water all over my background, I'll go ahead and color this background using that blue color. But then I wanted to add a little bit of glitter to my background, so here I'm using Lawn Fawn Stardust glitter. I'm gonna mix the blue color with this glitter instead of water and just go ahead and paint the complete background. For my first layer, I'm adding a very diluted color to my background. It's always good to start with less, so I always like to use very light colors when putting my first layer, and I slowly build my layers. So once I had my first layer of color, I added a little bit more blue to my color, and here I'm just making it a little more dark. Now you can see the sentiments more clearly, and as I was adding color to my background, I could see that I can create these boxes around my sentiments, and that would just give a very different look to my background. So here I'm just making those boxes, adding more darker color in those areas and making them dark enough to make sure that the boxes are properly visible. Watercolor cardstock, when added a lot of water, can warp a little. So you want to tape it down if you think you're going to add a lot of water to your background. I knew I'm not going to add a lot of water to it, so that's why I left it like this. So here I'm all done coloring my background, and I'm heat setting it with using my heat gun. You can leave it to air dry, but I just wanted to finish the card for my video purposes. Once the background is dry, I'll keep it aside and work on my focal images. I chose 2 images from I Heart Coffee stamp set. I stamped my first image using Salty Ocean Distress Oxide ink, and I'm stamping the other image using Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink. And now I'm going to go ahead and do some no-line coloring. I've smushed Pink Raspberry Distress ink on my acrylic block, and I'm coloring the coffee image using that pink color. You would think if I wanted to color it pink, why didn't I stamp with the pink color instead of the blue? I wanted to make it look like a glass container in which you have a strawberry flavored drink. And to create that glass container, I needed to have that blue lines instead of pink. So at first I added a very diluted layer of color. That was my first layer, and now I'm going back with a little darker color, adding shadows to the image and creating a contrast. For the top cream part, I'm trying to give it a strawberry flavored whipped cream look. And I'm repeating the same steps. I first added a very diluted first layer. I heat set that layer using my heat gun, and now I'm coming back with a darker color and adding shadows wherever needed. I'll go ahead and clean my acrylic block and smoosh some vintage photo distress ink on it. Now I'll go ahead and color the sleeve using that vintage photo distress ink. To color the heart, I'm using Festive Berries Distress ink. And I'll be almost done coloring this drink. And then I'll move on to coloring the Crescent. To color the Crescent, I'm using Vintage Photo Distress ink. Added the first layer of very diluted color. And then coming in with some darker colors and adding shadows wherever needed. Making sure I heat set the colors before I move on to adding more color. Once I added the darker colors, the colors did not look blended. So here I'm just trying to blend all the colors together to get a seamless blend. I wanted this Crescent to have a realistic look, and it took me a few minutes to get that look. Here I accidentally added a little too much water, so I'm trying to heat set that part. Luckily it didn't go out of the line and it was not that hard to fix. But because of that, my Crescent became a little more darker, and I had to go ahead and add even more darker color to the shadow areas to bring that contrast. But then everything worked in my favor, and I actually got a pretty realistic look by just adding a little bit more contrast to the image. Now I'm fussy cutting my images using my scissors. Here I'm trimming off my background from all sides, making it smaller 1/4 inches. So now it measures 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. For the sentiment, I'm white heat embossing the sentiment Coffee and Friends Make the Perfect Blend on a dark blue cardstock. Prep the surface with anti-static powder tool and stamping the sentiment using clear ink. Pouring white embossing powder onto the stamped sentiment and heat set it using my heat gun. Gluing the card front to my card base that matches my sentiment strip. I had this white scalloped circle die cut in my stash, and I'm inking it up using Blueprint Distress ink. Adding glue behind the circle and gluing it to my card front, offsetting it a little bit. Keeping a sentiment strip as guide, I trimmed off the circle from bottom and from side. Now I'll go ahead and glue my sentiment strip, trim off the excess cardstock that's hanging off the card, and then glue both the images using some foam tape. And that's it, my card is ready. So these are the 3 cards I made, featuring the stamp sets from Not2Shabby Shop May Box of the Month. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more crafty videos. Here are a few more videos that you might like to watch. Thank you for visiting. Have a nice day.